to another episode of All Things Entrepreneur. It is your boy, Errol J. Allen, with my lovely co-host,
Jessica Myers.
And we talk about shining the light on the blind side of entrepreneurship. But before we get into today's topic, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Stay living the dream. How you feeling?
I am blessed and highly favored as always. Thank you for asking.
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk real briefly. I mean, I remember we was talking about the whole Netflix Blockbuster scenario.
Oh,
you want to go to let's go to
Wait, did you even remember Blockbuster? Have you been to Blockbuster?
I have been to a Blockbuster. I know I'm young, but I wasn't born yesterday, guys.
Okay. So you gotta ask.
I done rented movies and all. I know.
So for a lot of people that's out there watching, they may not know or have heard of this huge company called Blockbuster, because when movies used to premiere in theaters, if they're still theaters now, but because you know people stream everything, but before there was these big hits at the Blockbuster. That's the only way you can go see a movie, is if you saw it in the Blockbuster and beyond. I mean, in the movie theaters, and beyond that, you could only see it after that if you went to this place called Blockbuster Video, and you could rent the video, and then they went to DVDs and everything like that. That's how you can consume content, right? Now, back in the day when I was growing up, they had this new competitor called Redbox. And it was like, Redbox, man, that ain't gonna last. Because it made it convenient where you can go to the grocery stores, because Blockbuster, they only have so many locations. And if you were in a place, and Blockbuster wasn't coming if you had less than 1,000 people per capita in your area. So if you were in a place and you couldn't get Blockbuster, how do you rent movies? So they brought Redbox. Redbox was like this box now. And Blockbuster was like, we're not studying it. They weren't studying it until this other new company came called Netflix. Now, Netflix used to have it. Now, Redbox would have the location at your grocery store where you can go, you can trade it in, whatever. Blockbuster, like, we ain't studying that. That's so old, archaic, whatever. Netflix comes along and is like, look, you don't even have to go to the grocery store. You ain't even got to leave your house. You can just mail it in. They still weren't worried about it. And now, as you guys can imagine, I say Netflix now, and you're like, oh, we know what Netflix is? Ta-doom. Like, that's all you need to know and identify this brand. But it was so huge coming against Blockbuster, which they cornered the market. And I watched a documentary the other day, ironically enough, on Netflix. And it was about the last Blockbuster store standing. And I thought that very interesting. So now, we're in 2024 and Netflix is a name, and I mean, they got awards and they fought their way in the industry. But to grow up and see that transition, to see Blockbuster stand on business, that they ain't changing, they ain't moving. We are the Blockbuster. We are the number one. But then you had some competition come up and shifted their entire business.
Disruption.
So now you only got one location left for Blockbuster.
Is it even still operational? Is it still a store?
Yeah, it really is. Like, they still have DVDs and all of that they bring out.
Nostalgia.
For note, real quick, the Mark Randolph, he tried to sell Netflix to Blockbuster back in 2000 before they blew up.
So as he mentioned, I'm not sure if you can hear that, but Netflix actually tried to sell their technology to Blockbuster, and they denied it.
Oh, that's even worse.
They stood on business.
Talk about the get back. Ooh!
They stood on business.
Hey, I love a good rejection to success story. I'm a sucker for those.
And I'm like, now we got the advantage that we can look back at it, but imagine what they went through during it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you seen that at all? Like, if we could take those same principles that we see from Blockbuster and Netflix, the power of the pivot. Have you expressed that or seen that in your business? Like, times where maybe you should pivot, because you're big on trusting your gut.
Yep.
What does your gut teach you when it's time to leave something, time to stay? Should I persist and make this happen no matter what, or should I pivot and go into something else?
So we got to take it back when I was 18 years old. I initiated my first pivot, my first official pivot. I was a full-time college student at the time. I was studying to become an industrial engineer, and one day, because I'm great with numbers, I decided to do some math. I wanted to see, okay, my what's it called? What do you call that? Tuition. My tuition is about $40K a year to go to the school. I'm going to be leaving here, and I'm going to be making about, give or take, 40 to 70K starting out. And then maybe 5 years, 10 years in, I'll be making 70 to 6 figures. And I started doing my math and mathing all that out. And I'm telling you, I had a coming to Jesus meeting with myself, all by myself in my room. I'm looking at the numbers and I'm like, the math ain't mathing. I'm not even going to be out of debt by the time I hit 30. This does not look like a profitable venture for me to take part in. Now, why was I doing industrial engineering? Because I'm good at math and everybody called me the Mark Zuckerberg for numbers, which is great. But this ain't going to turn a profit. Not no time in the near future.
Yeah.
So I initiated what I was called the pivot. Now,
did you know it was a pivot then?
I didn't know it was a pivot then, but I knew it was going to be a shift in direction. So now, disclaimer. I initiated the pivot all to myself. I made a decision to college dorm. I'm not going to go to college the next day.
Like, did you do this mid-semester or was the semester even over?
This was like the second day of my first semester.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my second semester of sophomore. First semester sophomore year. There we go.
Okay.
So
she was like, I already been through this a year.
Yeah, I already did this a year. I already saw what's to come, and I'm like, it ain't making sense. So I made the decision to stop and go pivot then, but the ramifications and the effects was not made known to my parents until that report card came 6 months later. So when that happened, then the effects of the pivot was real. But I made that decision. I pivoted early on because I saw the end goal. I saw that my desired result did not line up with the path I'm taking, and I decided to go somewhere else to find a different result. So yes, the pivot, I have initiated my very first pivot at 18, 19, when I said I'm going to retire from school and try my hand at this entrepreneur thing.
Now, the pivot came for me when I was in corporate America. And, I mean, at least you got yours early on. But the pivot came for me after working. I started working at Fox way young, like when I was in high school. I started working and I worked my way up to CBS and all of that. The pivot for me came already on the job, where I wish I had been better at numbers, because I just, like, everybody said go to college. I went to college. But I wish I had been better at numbers, because by the time it took me a couple years of my career to realize that math ain't mathing. Like, wait, like you said, it'd take 5 to 10 years to get to a certain level. Well, I still wasn't there, and I was 5 to 10 years in. I was like, we got to do something different. And so that's where pivot. And so it's interesting because it sounds like our circumstance allows us to look at something has to change. And I think that's what we're getting, that the power of pivot. But one of the things from Netflix versus Blockbuster is I feel like Blockbuster was persistent. They were persistently wrong because they weren't looking at the outscope of what was next, and they had looked so much at their past.
They rest on their laurels.
So it's just like, even when you decided what to pivot to, like, okay, we know that something needs to change, right? Because that's what we're coming against. Blockbuster should have found that something needed to change. Netflix saw something needed to change. Redbox saw something needed to change. Everybody knew something needed to change. Blockbuster was like, I'm standing on business. We gonna be the last man standing. And meanwhile, Netflix and Redbox were looking at the problems of access. They were looking at problems, and that's how they planned for their future. So how did you do that? Were you, I know that you assessed that something needed to change, but how did you know what to change to? So
I made my decision to make the pivot from school to going into the workforce, getting a job, seeing that, because I want to try my hand at the marketplace and see what I'm able to produce. And I ended up going to a job, the one job I worked my whole life, 6 months, and I only was making at best $9 an hour. Ooh. But me being always curious and wanting more for myself out of life, I'm surfing the internet, and I come across what was a Facebook ad or what have you of these entrepreneurs in their 20s making big money. Some of them was doing Forex, some of them was doing real estate, some of them was doing a whole bunch of other stuff. But I'm seeing these people living the life that I want to live for myself in my 20s and not in my 60s. So I see that, okay, they're portraying a lifestyle, and whether, again, because, you could do anything on the internet, and it could be good here, but offline, bank accounts in the red. But I saw enough to make me say, you know what, it can be done. It's possible. They're doing it. Why can't I? So what forced me to make that decision to pivot again after I retired from corporate America was just I tried my best hand at it. I saw the results I was able to get. I saw what path was going to happen in 1 year, 2 year, 5 years out. I did the math again. I'm a numbers guy. I did the math on where I was going to be earned had I made it to 2 more positions higher. I'm like, I'm still not going to get the result I want for my life. By age 30, I won't even be out of debt. Or not out of debt, but like self-sufficient, car, all that stuff, because I'd be crushed by monthly expenses. So I was like, this ain't it either.
Yeah.
So then I made the pivot again to start trying to do some of the things that the people that I saw on the internet were doing. So I tried the whole gambit, I tried Forex, network marketing, dropship. I did all that stuff. And then I settled in on real estate. And the reason I settled in on real estate is one of those big things. I don't enter a venture wholeheartedly. I might dibble dabble here or there, but I don't fully commit and immerse myself into a venture without finding and hiring a mentor.
Having a mentor is so pivotal because you know what one of the things that's happening in the marketplace is that you trade your time for money. And especially when you do it in corporate, like you said, $9, and you're a numbers person. If I'm trying to get to six figures, how many hours does that take for me to get to the six-figure mark? And getting $9 at a time could cost years of my life to get to that six-figure benchmark versus having the benefit of a mentor who can come in and show you, oh, do this, this, and this, because I'm already doing it and I'm already out there. But how did you even know that you needed a mentor?
So early on, when I discovered my real estate endeavors, I figured out quickly, I'm not going to be able to go from zero to hero without finding someone who's already walked the path. So it was real simple for me. I just need to find somebody who's already done what I'm looking to do, but not just done it masterfully at an expert high level. And I also want to make sure that this isn't just no foo-foo guy. This is like someone that people are like, yeah, that he's legit.
Yeah.
So when I started shifting and looking through the weeds to see where can I find a real estate mentor, I came across one at a networking event. I talked it up. I chopped up with him. He invited me to come up to some of his stuff. I checked him out. I did my research, and I found out, he walks the walk. And so once I did my qualification process, I said, you know what? I'm going to invest with him and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. Did you learn a lot?
I did.
Did it cut off a lot of your time?
It did. It cut off so much time that what I thought I could do in 3-4 years, I did in year one.
Wow.
So year one, my year one goal was, listen, all I want to do is just make about like $30K. 40K, 50K, if I can do that, then, I'll be good. So I did that. And then year two, I did six figures. Huge jump.
Yeah.
And I was like, what did I, it was because one, I had someone who's already doing it, but two, he already had the results and belief level like, hey, listen, I'm doing it at this level. You should be able to at least do it right there. And it rubbed off on me.
Okay.
So what I thought was, big to me at the time was pennies to him.
Yeah.
So that increased what I wanted for myself.
The value of a mentor, like you said, finding somebody that's doing what you want to do, have your rubric and qualifications, do your background research, look and make sure that they actually walk in the talk, but then they can help exponentialize your results.
Yep.
That's that. Even with me, like even going from media, when I started in media, I had an internship program, and so that taught me the basics and the fundamentals of getting in this new industry of television. That I wound up studying that in school, but that was my transition. Now, networking with the group, meeting people within the group, and understanding what habits and skills and things that they were doing. The same thing happened in real estate. When I got in real estate, most people, it's so funny. I ran into this lady. She's still looking for the perfect deal to get in. And I was like, oh, you were trying to get in when I was getting in 2015. And that's when I realized me going to that networking event and partnering with my mentor, I literally learned about real estate that December. By February, I bought my first house, second one by March, third and fourth one by April. I was able to get in and it was like, oh my God, but I was able to parlay and leverage the confidence of my mentor, which helped to truncate the time so that I'm not around here now 7 years later. Now, we had to unpack everything. And you talk about, we had to unpack everything. And, that's one of the things I've realized too. Mentors can teach you methodologies. They can teach you the process, but don't expect them to be perfect because sometimes you may have to fire mentors. Have you ever had to fire a mentor?
I have, and I actually want to go deep into that, but I just got one question. I'm sure the viewers would appreciate this. What are some qualifications, some background research that you do when it comes to finding a qualified mentor that you're going to say, I trust this person to get me where I'm trying to go?
Ooh, well, for one, I do a lot of work on what I'm looking to do. So I know clearly, like if I'm taking a road trip, I know clearly that I'm looking to get to this address in New York. I don't just say I want to go up north. I know that I want to get to this address in New York, or I know that I have a specific goal, like you said, if it's to acquire homes, if it's to generate this amount of income, whatever that specific goal is. A lot of times the mentors that I meet have said something that touches or taps on the goals I've already set. So that's where even now as an entrepreneur, they tell you to talk to the pain points. My coach has spoke, or somebody that I've identified has spoken to the pain point that I need to hit.
So let's talk about like your coach specifically. How did you vet your coach to be deemed coach worthy per se?
Well, I like to look at the company you keep. So I'm like, okay, are other experts vouching for him? Are other people, validating what he does? I like to look at their socials, look through LinkedIn, Google them, see any stories come up. Do they have any testimonials, anything to verify? I also like to look at results. Like, I like to follow you, see you in the field. Like, I'm cool. You say you can do X, let's go do it. You don't know until I do it. It's one thing I can tell you all day I can do 20 push-ups. But it's another thing if you see me do 20 push-ups. And a lot of what I do is, get into the field with mentors if you can, or look at some results that they produce. Like, what are other people saying about them that are not in the room, and how consistent are they? Are they somebody who just started last week like me, or have they been doing it for years? Because years and time shows consistency and proof. But you should be able to have fruit from that time that can help, know if this is somebody who can actually teach you what you want to know.
Okay, so overlying bullet points. You want to see the company that they keep.
Yeah.
You want to see the results that they produce.
Yes.
How long they've been in the sector.
Yes.
And there was a fourth one, I missed it.
We said testimonials?
Yeah, the testimonials on how have other people benefited from working with you and all that. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha.
What about the qualifications you look at?
I mean, actually, probably very similar to you. So I would say for me, I do my background work. Yeah, I check to see if you had any run-ins with the law or anything like that. But one of the big things for me, and again, it just speaks to me as a man. I want to know if you're married or not. Because that's
for business.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Spot on. Because that tells me if you're able to run a household and obviously I don't know about the status of the marriage, but if everything is in order in that realm, in your personal world, then I would presume you could keep everything in order in your business world as well, too. So I pay attention to that.
So then what is the assumption? Because you're single.
I know.
So what would the assumption be if somebody
that's me.
but if somebody looked and like your criteria and they had that same like, can he keep
Well, then I hope you look at the other stuff. Like, I've been doing it for X amount of years. I've had X amount of testimonies on Instagram and YouTube. So the other stuff should fall into play there. But that was for me personally when I was starting off.
Okay.
Like in the beginning stages. Again, because everybody wasn't throwing testimony results on YouTube when I was looking up how to do real estate wholesale and all that stuff.
Yeah.
They was just doing it and probably keep it to themselves in the back corner because they didn't want to get widespread like it is today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say if you was holding me to my same metrics, then you better check the other 4 boxes per se. Hey, how long has he been doing it? How have other people benefited from his teachings? What was the other thing you said?
We said testimonials. Company you keep.
Yep. Yeah. Is he hanging out with other? Again, he may not be married, but is he hanging out with other high profile individuals who are doing right, doing everything above board?
Yeah.
Because I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, there's some people right now that I wanted to do business with.
Yeah.
But I saw some of the people they were doing business with. And that deterred me.
Okay.
Because I was like, because I know stories about said person. I don't know anything about you, but I know if you're keeping company with this person, then you have a level of to you.
Guilty by association.
And I could be entitled. You could be the angel on earth, but guess what? I know something about this guy.
Yeah.
And if you in bed with that guy in terms of doing business and whatnot, then I'm going to just have my eyebrow raised. Yeah. I'll still give you a fair shot, but now I'm not as, man, I really want to do some work with you because now I'm just like,
It's like guilty by association.
Again.
So then that leads me to, we talking about pivoting and the power of pivot. At what point do you pivot from even that mentor or pivot from that partnership or pivot from, what no longer may be serving you?
Well, so I do something that's called always be qualifying, ABQ. So even though I may give you the title of mentor, I may give you the title of business coach, I'm still keeping tabs on what you got going on in your life and everything. And if stuff starts going left, like for instance, I had a mentor where stuff was going left in their personal life, and then it came into their business life and all the other stuff, and then rumors started coming out, and I disassociated myself from said mentor. Why? Because name was hot in the streets for the wrong reason. And I was like, I'm building the brand on character, integrity, getting things done, and all this stuff. And you're right now, your brand is doing the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So this is no longer and again, you know,
a win-win.
A win-win. I learned some things. Again, you've bestowed some value on me, and I've obviously bestowed value back. But right now, the water's tainted.
The block is hot.
The block is hot. So I gotta do what's best for me and my brand, my integrity, and you know, move on to bigger and better things, and then find a quote unquote another mentor. Even like and outside of business, you know, I had to move on from one person who was training me to another person who's training me now. And the reason I did that was because what X person A did for me at my level of life and fitness, I've done that now. Now I'm trying to, you know, tone up and, you know, get all this going and look shredded, washboard abs and all that. I got muscles was good and all, but now I need to find someone who's more in that realm. So yeah, obviously it just comes to where you're at in your journey, what you're looking to achieve, and does that person still, even with your fine attunement of your goals, aspirations, what you're looking to do, that they still fall in line with what you're trying to do for yourself. If they fall out of line, it's okay. I don't think anyone, again, there are people who could be mentors for life, but I don't think everybody's going to be a mentor for life. So, you know, if you outgrow said mentor, have to fire one.
And it still goes back to the power of the pivot, knowing that something's up and something needs to change. If we're no longer getting the route that, you know, it's one of the things that in traveling through, going up to New York and keeping with that same vein, 85 only takes you so far. At some point, you got to hop on 95. And that's one of the things. It's like, at what point have I exhausted how far I can go on this particular path without having to go somewhere else? When I'm if I kept on 85, I would be shifting and going in a different direction, period. Like, it's nothing about it. So it's rerouting. It's like those indicators that if something is not working out, I have to look and shift and see what's not working out, fix that, and it's going to keep me in the right path to get to my North Star.
So a question for you now. Of course, you know, we don't want to hire, want to fire, but now let's talk about in the midst of it. At what point is it persistence, or what point is it like you gotta just initiate the pivot? What I mean by that is, obviously, if you're in this entrepreneurial journey, you're gonna come across a time period where things aren't going according to plan. Money's not coming in like it's supposed to be. Things are going left. Bills are piling up. Blah blah blah. At what point do you say this venture, I need to either make some very serious changes ASAP, or just scrap the whole thing and build on somewhere else?
And that has been a hard decision, because like you said, I've had a lot of wins, but also recently have faced some losses. And that became, because I'm the type person, I'm gonna make a way even if there's not. I'm gonna come back, and that's the type person that I am as an entrepreneur, always finding a way. But when so many doors were shutting, everything was coming, it was like, okay, I have to be real with myself, and this is more than I can overcome. So now I need to go in a different direction, because the persistence in me has tried this, and I can list how many years that I was persistent to see it through before I realized the maturity in me. Because in the persistence versus the pivot, in talking to a mentor, she showed me that my error and maybe things that I didn't know. And I didn't know that I didn't know it because it's my blind side. But in now understanding that, I understand that just what this tweak, this would pivot me back to my North Star that I was looking ahead to. I was just heading and doing, you get in routine, you do it in your own way. You're a solopreneur. I had a mentor that pointed me in the right direction, but they're not here for the day to day. And I realized, I was like, I've exhausted a lot of resources, and it's now starting to spill over in family, friends, and everything else. So now this is where a mentor sat me down and was just like, you have to look at it from an eagle's eye, and your habits and what you're doing and how you can shift. And that's, like you said, the power of the mentor, the power of somebody who's been there before, the power of leveraging her experience. Like, I've been down that path, I've been persistent, and it didn't work out. So I'm advising you, switch paths so that you get on a place to victory. So I think trusting your circle, trusting your mentors, and being honest with yourself. Is the persistence why you're not succeeding? the resources, you're not turning it up? Or is it that you need to shift and do something different? So I think having that outside perspective or a mentor can help determine and evaluate how powerful it may be to switch to another lane.
So for me, in my situation, I have persistence versus the pivot. I've initiated the pivot, sometimes maybe too soon. Because I ain't gonna hold you. There's been instances where, like, we'll just say, again, starting off, wholesaling's going super well, 4 years in, money's still coming in, but I'm like, money's not always gonna be like this.
Yeah.
It's not always gonna be like this forever. So I'm like, I need to find out something that I can add on, supplement, or bring in that when times are not like this, that I can still stay afloat. And funny enough, that's when I started, doing the buy and holds and the short-term rentals and all that. That was a pivot. Now I'm over here, again, people know me for flipping houses left and right like hotcakes. So now I'm doing short-term rentals and building this up, and they're like, that's different. But then fast forward 5 years later when, let's say this was 2017 when I made that pivot, then 2022 comes around and houses aren't coming in, deals aren't moving in like they're supposed to, but I made those decisions early on to make that pivot, and guess what? I'm no longer like, oh man, how am I going to make it next month? I mean, I know a lot of people that went out of the business because they did not make the pivot, because they did what Blockbuster
Yeah,
did.
that's what I was about to say. They did what Blockbuster did. They said, I'm not worried. It's, you know what? So Titanic, I was young enough where I didn't know the ship was going to sink. So I'm in the movie theater. It's like, oh no! Like, I think I was devastated. But one of the things that I saw that was key is that, you know what tipped people off a lot of times before even anybody knew anything was going on? When the rats start running. Rats started running, and they were like, and that was a thing that became a thing. It was like, follow the rats. And even it was a storm happening somewhere, and they were like, they noticed the deer. It was like a whole influx of deer just start running. It was like, when you start to see those signs, like when you start to see Netflix coming and you start to see all these things coming, don't just ignore it. Start to look at those signs, because that's really what's going to tell you and going to be some indicators that something's happening. When you see a rush of people moving out of one segment in the market into another, and they talk about, and people love to talk about interest rates and real estate. And one of the things that you told me was buy real estate and don't wait to buy real estate. Because if you get swayed by the fluctuation, but there is something to see when you see a lot of movement happening. Look at what's going on and understand where it is my power to find and reposition myself, which is the pivot, so that we can now succeed and not have to get taken aback. Like if Blockbuster would have taken them up on that offer in 2000 and shifted their operations, we would still be going by Blockbuster today. But they refused to pivot and shift how business was going, and now you only have one location left.
Have you ever pivoted too soon?
Oof.
Ever came across something where you was like, it's good, and then got out, and it's like, I could have done that a little bit longer.
You know what? Honestly, when you and I first started working together with wholesaling. Remember, I went to go work for this other guy. I was like, he's licensed, and worst decision ever. Worst decision ever. Not only was he not the best decision to move forward with and build business, because he wanted to keep me here, and I mean just all of the nuances, but then that's when, like, I think that next month is when you just like popped off, and it was like if I pivoted too soon, because I remember having that conversation with you, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna start working with this guy, and you was like, are you sure that's what you want to do? And in my mind, he checked off all the qualifications for mentor. In my mind, and that's what I was going to ask you too, because a lot of times when you go back to fire your mentor, or you had to fire them, I didn't look for any of the indicators that I fired them for in my qualifications. And so that was interesting, because yes, I checked him out. Yes, he had receipts. Yes, he had results. But his mentality of our relationship was to keep me here. And I didn't understand that or know that, and wasn't strong enough to get that. Like for a wholesale deal, you can make on average of, couple commas. But he was literally giving me $125 per wholesale. That was his outtake, and that was his output. And it was just interesting that, I was like, well, I'm here for the experience. Just like we may be taking the $9 an hour here for the experience. And it's like, don't shortchange yourself. Don't shortchange what you could have done, because I pivoted too soon. And I mean, now life is taking its course. But I feel like I pivoted too soon in that moment, where if I would have stayed the course, stayed persistent, I would have gotten there to some victories a lot sooner.
So for me, and it's actually, I got two things. One, I pivoted too soon, not in real estate, but I was doing some crypto investing. Oh. Yeah, so I was buying Bitcoin early on when Bitcoin was worth like $1,000, hundreds of bucks, right? And I was putting like 5,000 because I was taking my whole sum money. One of the things I was pivoting as I was doing short-term rental, I was also putting some money in the crypto too because I believed in that, still believe in it. So I was like, yeah, I'm putting money in, blah blah blah. Everything's looking good. I put probably about like $6,000 worth of money into crypto back when crypto was worth like $900, and then I had all this stuff sitting. I was introduced to some people, and they was talking about some mining material and Bitcoin mining and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I remember. I went to a presentation that you did.
Yep.
How did that go?
We will find out. So, of course, you know, people were getting the miners, and they're all the way in like Iceland. You know, you gotta fly out there if you
where it's cold.
Yeah, where it's cold. So you gotta fly out there if you want to see it, right? So I, you know, my stash of Bitcoin, I moved pretty much all of it there, and then the company went under a year later.
Oh my gosh.
Had I not made that pivot and just kept my money in my wallet and just let it sit there,
we wouldn't even hear from you right now.
I wouldn't be here. I'd be in an island.
You'd be in Iceland like.
So, pivoted too soon.
Wow.
That is my biggest blunder to date.
Yeah.
So,
well, hopefully now with the lessons you've learned, we're able to make more than make up for it.
Listen, unfortunately, I have my crypto business partner who, you know, helps me out, advises me, and put me in a position to be self-sufficient in the crypto space. Yeah, no, that's never happening again. Yeah. And we recouped some of that. You know, we recouped some of that. But that was the toughest L that I have ever encountered.
Wow.
Because I made the right decision. I believed in the right vehicle, right place, right time. I just pivoted too soon. I just pivoted into something that I should never even pivoted.
Yeah. Well, like they say, hindsight is 20/20.
Hindsight is 20/20, but goddamn, that's a painful 20/20.
Painful vision.
That's a painful. Goddamn, I still wake up and like But it's all good, yeah. I guess you know we live and learn. But on the flip side, so for people like the average viewer, because I know shiny ball syndrome is a real thing. I hear it all the time. This didn't work out, so I go there. What's a good length of time that somebody should invest into said project, whatever it is, whatever the venture is, before they even start thinking about doing pivots? Because I mean, I know you hear it. I hear people making pivots 2 weeks in, 30 days in. I'm just like, you don't even know how to, what?
Yeah, well, I always go by, what does the IRS require? What, 2 years tax returns? Mm-hmm. Or most places you go, they say 2 years tax returns. And 2 years sounds like a long time. But I feel like if you at least give yourself that runway, there's a reason that they came up with the 2 years, because they're like, you win, lose. You know, if it takes 21 days to build a habit, I like to go in 90-day sprints, and you get at least 4 cycles in a year in 90-day windows. So I like to do that same principle. Like, okay, let me at least give 2-year runway to see how this goes. But that's me putting in my all. Now, if you make it 2 weeks and you quit, how tied in were you to that vision or whatever it is you were trying to do?
That's an excellent way to look at it. I never even thought about it like that. Mine was 1 year. I was like, 1 year, give it your all, and if something happens, the chips fall they may. But 2 years tax returns, the banks require, why not put 2 years into it? That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because there's a reason that they come up with, they could have said 1 year. They could have said half a year. But there's a reason I'm feeling that they looked at the larger picture to know that it took 2 years. Like, we're going to give you enough cycles of win-loss to figure it out.
So conversely, in terms of pivoting too late, so if you go past 2 years and you're not seeing results or whatever the results may be, is that the time to say, you know what, it's time for me to hang up the rack and keep it going? Because, we've heard people like, they've done something for 5 years, didn't make a penny, but then year 6, they made millions.
But then that's what you're talking about as far as having a mentor. That's where you may need to tap into somebody over your shoulder to be like, hey, or coach. And maybe that's the difference between a coach and a mentor. Because a coach they can look over your shoulder, and it's almost like a tutor when you're going for your homework. Like in school, if you don't know 2 + 2 = 4 and you can't get it, you go see the teacher afterwards. You be like, it's something about this that ain't making sense. And I would do that sooner than to know if this is going to be. The more time you give it, the worse it is for everybody involved. Like, the faster you can get to an answer. That's why the second I get an idea, and my husband, he tells me this all the time, slow down. Because the second I get an idea, we already got people we're talking to. We got this person who does it, and da-da-da-da-da-da. Because I want as many people to give me input and help tip me off in the right direction. Because I don't want to get there in 6 years. I want to get there as soon as possible. And then that's how, you get all of the stories of the things that I've been able to achieve, at such a young age, is because I like to get the experts right away. I like to I immerse myself. Like when that's how we connected. When I got into real estate, I was going to 4 networking events a week. And I wasn't just going just to go. I was going, talking to the top producers in the room and seeing what their habits were, where they were hanging out, what they were doing, so that this 6-year rampway can get truncated in a matter of days. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have those habits, I don't know if I would take it beyond a few years, because it's the habits that's going to get you exponential results. But, it will pop. I do know those people who stuck with something and it's like just when you least expect it is when it wound up manifesting. But you got to look at the habits and what you're putting into it to determine if what you're getting out of it is worth it.
Awesome. Well, Jessica, it was a great talk as always.
Oh, yeah. Like you said, we're shining the light on some of the conversations that don't get had. Because it's great that we can tell you we're entrepreneurs and but it's another thing when you really have to realize I have to pivot and I have to do it different. And it's like either you want to be Blockbuster or you're going to be Netflix. So as always, thanks for tuning in to another episode of All Things Entrepreneur. Be sure to subscribe and watch our previous videos to learn more of how you can see the dark side of entrepreneurship and the blind side that we help to uncover. As always, you got it. Let's get it.
Let's go.
Thank you.